Did Charlie Munger just dump his stock in Alibaba? What is going on? If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Daniel. You are watching Unrivaled Investing. Let's dive right into what's going on. You look at their fourth quarter 2021 financial filings. You know, what you're talking about is the Daily Journal Corporation. You could see Alibaba. They don't have a ton of positions. Alibaba was one of their top positions where they had 600,000 shares of the Alibaba ADS. So this is what traded on the American exchanges. Then you fast forward to what was just filed a few minutes ago. Alibaba ADS now only 300,000 shares. What is going on with their position in Alibaba? Did they indeed cut it by more than 50%? Well, first of all, you need to understand there's been some change up with the management situation here. You have Jerry Salzman, who's the CEO, previously CEO, and you have Charlie Munger, who previously was the chairman of Daily Journal. As you can tell, they're both getting on in their age, getting on in their years. And what ended up happening is that you see effectively new leadership. You have Stephen Myhal-Jones. He's replacing Jerry Salzman. Jerry Salzman has been with Daily Journal for 44 years. He's grown the company significantly over that time. So new blood coming into the company. And you also see that Charlie Munger is relinquishing his role as chair, but will remain as director. Here's where the language, which was really interesting, to pay particular attention to matters which he has been involved in the past, including the company's securities portfolio. So he is still overseeing the investments, arguably one of the greatest investors of all time. Now, interestingly, in the press release, I'm not going to touch upon that too much here. I'm just going to mention it. Just another example of how Charlie Munger is just an incredible character is that he's taking $1 million of his own stock in Daily Journal and effectively giving it to Daily Journal to be used as executive compensation for bringing in new management. Instead of looking at what most companies do, which is, hey, we're just going to dilute shareholders, tremendously, he's saying, hey, I'm going to take it out of my pocket to effectively bring in new blood. Just talk about being an exemplar. And so the question is that a lot of folks are tuning in for, not only for Charlie's character, but also wondering like, hey, did he dump Alibaba stock? And I think it's always worthwhile to take a second and say, hey, no matter what he did, you want to channel Charlie Munger. You want to say like, well, what's his actual advice? Instead of just looking at individual stock picks, look at, what's the wisdom that he's sharing. And look, that's, I have my own signed copy as well. And so the point that I'm making here is that no matter what Charlie Munger is doing, you want to say, hey, let's behave rationally. That's what he's aiming for. He's saying, hey, what would a rational person do? What is the right framework? And the reality is I called out Alibaba as a company that I like and own before I even found out that Charlie Munger started buying it. And you could chronicle, you could see my history with Alibaba on YouTube. Full disclosure, check out my disclosure in the comment, the description of this video. And so I'm looking at Alibaba. And so regardless of whether or not Charlie Munger is indeed selling it for Daily Journal or liquidating their portfolio or what have you, you always need to have your own fundamental analysis. And I've done my own analysis saying, look, Alibaba, it's at a cheap valuation, arguably, and you could check out my prior video. They aren't, their value proposition is coming under pressure from other competitors. They're potentially losing market share, but this is potentially a huge cash cow, printing billions of dollars in free cash flow, and arguably the valuation is quite cheap, and that's why I own it, and they potentially have a nice runway for growth, and I've called that out in prior videos. You want to think rationally, independently from seeing these data points. That said, it's also possible Charlie Munger has not been selling. It's possible. I'm not sure yet because you haven't seen their quarterly filing, but it is clear that in the past, Daily Journal also owned foreign securities. And when you're filing with the SEC, you don't have to show what is the foreign stock that you own. And what you can do with Alibaba, I've personally done it myself, is you can convert the ADS into Hong Kong shares if you want to. So that way it trades on the Hong Kong exchange. When you do that, you don't have to show that you own those shares. So on the one hand, it's very possible that he's been selling Alibaba stock. I would be surprised because arguably there hasn't been a lot of data points in the last few months that would change the thesis, in my opinion, versus, let's say a few months ago. It's also possible, in my opinion, probably more likely, is that he was converting the stock into Hong Kong shares. But look, we'll see when the quarterly filing comes out. So far, it's only been the investment filing showing their U.S. listed securities that they own. It's very possible they converted that into Hong Kong shares, a foreign security. And I know I did a prior video talking about how Daily Journal had effectively levered up, borrowed money on margin to buy foreign stocks. And you don't know what foreign stocks they are because they don't disclose that. They're not forced to do it. That is something that you want to keep in mind. I personally buy my foreign stocks, on the accounts I use are Interactive Brokers, so you check that. I don't have any sort of affiliate relationship with them at this point, maybe in the future. But this is a data point to consider if you are personally looking for foreign exchange securities versus buying on the U.S. exchange. So we'll see. Maybe he dumped it, maybe he didn't. But once again, if he did, even if he did dump it, you got to focus on your own analysis. You have to say, okay, what are the data points? And I called out several months ago. I said, here are the data points that made Alibaba stock worse. The economic environment was way worse than I expected. Their competitive aspects, their growth wasn't as fast as I expected. I called that out in prior videos. And so you definitely need to always channel your own Charlie Munger. Try to have your own rational thought. That's the goal here with investing. Have your own rational perspective. Once again, check out the disclaimer in the description of this video. And if you're interested in finding potential multi-baggers, or you'd like to follow along with my personal financial journey, go to unrivaledinvesting.com, where I write a weekly letter. We also have an exclusive community dedicated to learning and sharing on Discord. Once again, that's unrivaledinvesting.com. And if you enjoyed this video, please make a point of hitting that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for tuning in.